Hey guys, welcome to Sopi Mix Studio Umbiamas, conectando Aruba com o mundo via vídeo podcasting. Conectar conosco, compartilhar ideias e histórias para nos inspirar e para conan abrir. Sopi Mix Studio é plataforma de podcast na Aruba. Follow-nos riba Facebook, subscribe riba YouTube ou riba plataforma de podcast preferido. Escute o podcast preferido que hora e onde cutar. Sopi Mix Studio, powered by Qredits, botou ideia? Qredits educava e prepara a abo para ser um empresário exitoso. De business plan, guia personal e préstamo para negócio até com 100 mil florim. Bira bom mês donho com Qredits. Sopway, passa na Sopway para o sop, salada, wrap ou flatbread e mais fresco. Com 7 localidades rond Aruba, não está cerca de Ibo. Sopway. Swingmasterz, organizando events, conferences of weddings, Mr. de luz, sound, staging, DJ, trussing of flat screen, Swingmasterz está claro para ser boa festa um êxito. Swingmasterz. E agora, Sopi Mix Studio é plataforma de podcast de Aruba, está apresentar. Yes. Boa noite, bom dia, bom tarde. We're going to do this in English today. So the moment you're going to listen to this podcast, welcome to Sopi Mix. Today we're live from Local Store. The first time that we left the office, so it's like a really major step for Sopi Mix. So it's really awesome. Before we start, I want to thank Subway. I want to thank Qredits. I want to thank Eclectic Advisory Partners, tourcanal.com, Swingmasterz, and least, how do you say?
Last but not least.
Local Store.
Last but not
Thank
least.
You
Local
guys.
Store.
Thank you guys. All right, guys. Today I have the honor, a book that I read like a year and a half ago. I don't recall how I got this book, but it came into my path of life, and I read it, and it blew my mind away. And I have the honor today to have the author of this awesome book. The book is called Fuck Your Feelings: How You Can Master Your Mind by taking control of situations that basically you can predict your future. First of all, let me introduce my guest at the table. At my right, I got Herrick Henriquez.
Yes, correct.
How are you doing?
Good. Excited. I did not finish the book a year ago. I finished it today.
Okay.
I told you I'll finish it. Hey, he drops bombs, man. He drops some bombs in there. I have some questions for him, but we'll let it flow.
All right.
But Ryan dropped some bombs, so it's definitely a recommended book for everybody that's on a book journey who reads books.
Nice. In front of me I have Oliver Viera. Welcome, Oliver.
Thank you for
You have to be closer to the mic because
mic.
Yeah. Put the mic. Yes.
Don't be scared of the mic.
Don't be scared of the mic. Or put it up a little bit. Yes. All right.
Yes.
All right. And on my left I have Jennifer.
Yes.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm excited.
All right.
And I also finished the book today. So I agree
Good
with
job.
Herrick. Dropping bombs,
Yes.
and we have a lot of questions for you.
All right. What's
Last but not least.
All right. Thank you.
The man of the hour.
We got the man of the hour, Mr. Ryan Munsey. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing really well. Thank you guys so much for having me.
For us, it's a really honor. For me, especially, it's a really honor to have you on my podcast. Like I told you with the first time I sent you that message, I was just thinking, I have the no, I can get the yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Correct.
And I have just sent you a message, and look at we're today. You're live with us, so I'm really, really thankful for this moment.
Well, and congratulations to you on, just not only starting the podcast, but like you said in the intro, this is your first episode that you guys have left the studio. I'm looking at what you guys are doing on the screen, and it looks like a blast. I think it's so cool that you guys have, set up in a live place like this, and you're doing it. And man, as a fellow podcaster, I appreciate the the thought and the creativity and originality that you're bringing to your show.
Thank you, thank you. Ryan, before we start, tell us a little bit about who's Ryan.
Who is Ryan? Well, I mean, I'll try to make it short. So, I mean, I know you guys want to talk about the book, and we'll get to that.
Yes.
I grew up in the U.S. I'm from the state of Virginia, so about I'm on the East Coast. It's about halfway up, if you're not familiar with the U.S. And I grew up playing sports my whole life. Got to college and wasn't quite good enough to play. The sports, basketball and soccer were my sports, and wasn't good enough to play at that level. And at college, I got into nutrition and weightlifting, and kind of filled that competitive void with those pursuits. And as I started to dig into that, I really got exposed to how we can manipulate and control certain inputs in order to get different outputs, in terms of how we perform and how we look and how we feel and what our health is. And really just started to get a sense for how much of, the way we feel and the way we perform that is within our control. And it really kind of snowballed from there. While I was in college, I was able to learn from some amazing people that train really high level athletes. And, from there, I went to New York City for a year and did some fitness modeling, and then came back home to my home state of Virginia. Worked as a personal trainer for a few years before I opened my own gym. It was like a CrossFit style, warehouse gym. We didn't do CrossFit, but it was, all about strength and performance. And, a lot of the stuff that's in the book, is what was really exciting to me in the gym. The X's and O's of programming are always exciting to me, but, I was really eager to move out of the gym and to have more of those deeper conversations. When folks come into the gym, they're looking for that workout effect, and you have to deliver that, which it makes it really tricky to kind of have those conversations and work on some of that deeper stuff. And we did, but by moving out of the gym and then pursuing podcasting and writing the book and some of the speaking and workshops and things that I've been able to do in the last few years, it's given me the opportunity to work, a little bit deeper with folks and to really help them, tap into what's inside of them and make really large steps forward in their lives.
The sentence that really took my attention when I read the book was the sentence, "Your life is perfectly designed for the results you are getting." That sentence was like you said in your book, mind-blowing for me. How did you come up with that? Like,
well, I didn't come up with that. That was in a lot of the talks that I do. I call that the best piece of advice I've ever been given. And even in the book, I attribute that to my mentor and business coach early on, a guy named Paul Herrick. And that's something that he said to us one time that, I had the same reaction that you guys did. I mean, it just blew my mind. And, really, I mean, it holds a mirror up in front of us, doesn't it? We look at that and it's just, man, there are certain results that we're all getting that we would like to keep. Right. And so you identify those things that you're doing now that you're doing well or that serve you, and you continue to do them. But then you also look at it and you say, well, what are some of the results that I'm currently getting that I would like to change? And then you can track that back to, okay, well, I'm doing, maybe you're watching 2 hours of TV at night, every night, and maybe that you don't think that that's a big deal. But, another great book is The Compound Effect from Darren Hardy. So if you look at the compound effect of 2 hours of TV every night, if you do that 5 nights a week, that's 10 hours a week, 4 weeks in a month, that's 40 hours in a month right there. Yeah. And so if we're looking at, if you divide that by an 8-hour workday, that's 5 8-hour workdays that we have found, and so you have these people that are, maybe it's somebody that says, I don't have time to do this, or, I would like to start a side hustle or a second business, but, or write a book, and I don't know when I'm going to do it. Well, we just found you 40 hours in a month, right? That's 5 full work days. And so it's just something that I've always thought about is, when you look at successful people or high performers, they don't have a different number of hours in the day from the rest of us. They're just spending their time differently. And so, one of the big things that, you guys have all read the book, you're aware of it. In the book and in the work that I do, coaching and teaching, time is very much at the forefront of how I think and how I look at things, and time management and the choices that we make and how we spend our time. And I think most of the high performers that I've been around are very vigilant and diligent with the way that they spend their time. And so if somebody isn't doing that now, that's a really low hanging fruit, a really easy way to start to make some major changes in your life.
Ryan, one thing that you said is something, I'm an aspiring coach also. I work right now I represent companies on the island for an association, an employers or organization. But I'm an aspiring coach also, and that's something I always tell people is time. Everybody has the same amount of time. For me, in the beginning, I started like the 5 a.m. club. I joined that like 10 years ago. That was one time when the gym was closed or closed at 12, and I always would work out at night. I started working out in the mornings, and I felt more energized. After that, I saw that I was spending so much time in the morning on social media. And this year I started a book journey where it says that all big CEOs or all successful people read at least 1 book a week. I put that as a goal this year, and I crushed that goal within 9 months. So time is, I have 2 kids, I have a full-time job, I do this kind of stuff with people. So time is relevant. We have to find the time, and if you really want something, and that's what Jeff said, if you really want something, you will find the time. You will make that sacrifice to get it. And I think that's something that people have to get. That mindset change is leave the phone alone, leave the TV alone. Those are the biggest addictions that there are right now in the world, next to sugar and of course all the other substances people use. But the time and time management, what you talk about, I totally agree with that too. That's something that I preach, and I preach it a lot to a lot of people.
There's a secondary statement to the one that you guys mentioned. Your life is perfectly designed for the results that you're currently getting. And the way that was presented to us was in watching football on the weekends. And, just like you mentioned, it's all about how we choose to spend our time. And so the secondary statement is, how much time are you spending watching someone else live their dream instead of spending that time creating or building your dream? And, when you think about it like that, I mean, it's another one of those like eye-opening moments of like, man, maybe I should spend less time watching the Kardashians or, Bachelorette or, whatever the thing is that people do. But the truth is, we joke about those shows, but I mean, the truth is the people on those shows are living their dreams.
Yeah, true.
Right. And, if you're watching, soccer or football or basketball, whatever it is, again, those people are living their dreams. And, we're just choosing, you can think of it as a distraction. You can think of it as an anesthetic that numbs the trauma of thought. That's another thing that we really have to be careful of as humans, that, look, it is difficult to be a human. And that was one of the reasons that, I was hoping that this book could serve as a user's manual for, the space between our ears and how to manage a lot of the things that we all have to deal with in ways that serve us and help us move closer to the things that we want, instead of, as we've been talking about, wasting time, watching other people live their dreams or, just idly scrolling, whether it's social media or, whatever the things are. Just, again, being very diligent and vigilant over how we choose to spend our time.
So Ryan, I have what I do on a daily basis is I help entrepreneurs obtain financing or funding in either case. And so we help a lot with the achieving of those dreams, which you were talking about. Now, one of the things that takes a lot of effort to explain to people or to make them conscious of is, in order to do or to achieve what you're saying, choose your time and be efficient with it and do stuff that's constructive, it requires you to get out of your comfort zone. How do you advise those people to get out of their comfort zone? I know the book goes quite in detail into explaining that, but I was wondering from your perspective, like as a simple explanation as possible to the viewers, what would you say?
That's a really good question. So I'll avoid all the cliche answers. I mean, as you said in the book, I kind of get into a lot of things and tools that we can put in our toolbox. And I'm sure if you guys read books, if your listeners read books, if you listen to podcasts, you've heard a lot of the same types of things. And so I'm going to try to give you an answer that maybe you haven't heard. And to your question, it's one of the ways that I talk about this when I'm speaking or when I'm coaching somebody individually. The way that I phrase it is that we have to really wrap our heads around what it means to be abnormal. And I use that word intentionally because, a lot of folks it's cool to get on Instagram and say, I'm average averse, or can we cuss on here? I know the book has a cuss word in the title, but
You can cuss. Don't worry.
Hey, don't worry.
Okay.
Do whatever you want.
Okay. So like another thing you'll see all the time is, fuck average or fuck normal, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so it's cool to post that and say that, but
do you live it?
What that really means in your daily life is that you have to be comfortable being the oddball, being the weirdo, being abnormal. It means you've got to go to dinner and not order an alcoholic drink, or you've got to go, to a social situation and not eat the food that moves you away from your goal. You mentioned sugar or the other things.
Sorry
right?
to interrupt you, but then we're now at the wrong place because they got the best wings.
And I really need a beer. And we need.
I know. And so. I mean, maybe those are bad examples, but those are the situations that most often come up when I'm talking to people or coaching people that are, they continue to find themselves in that place where, they're like, man, I keep making this decision over and over and over again, even though I say I'm not going to, or I don't want to. And it really just comes down to, can you be okay with being abnormal? Because if you're going to be anything other than average or normal, that's what abnormal means. The definition of abnormal is not normal, right? It's not average. And so if you're going to be above average, you're going to be an abnormal person. You're going to have abnormal habits. And you have to be secure enough in yourself. You have to be committed enough to your own values and your own standards in order to, make that decision in the moment when it's uncomfortable. Right. And so, to your question of, how do you get comfortable being uncomfortable? That's just it is you have to be in those situations and not compromise your values or standards.
You just have to do it.
It's hard. I know it's hard.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Ryan, I have a question for you. In your book, you talk a lot about belief systems. And I'm a coach and I help people rewire their beliefs. And I want to know from you, which was that one belief that you advise people to rewire? That one belief that is the foundation for you?
That's a tough one. I think I'm going to try to answer it. I'm not trying to dodge it, but I guess for me, what does that person need, right? What's the thing that's holding that person back? So the answer is going to be, it's unique to the individual, right? I'm not going into all my coaching clients and saying here's the one belief that gets everybody. It's going to get you too, right?
Yes.
It's really, I mean, you guys know when you're working with individuals, you have to tailor the coaching to them. And so, maybe if I think about it as, what's the most common one?
Yes.
The most common limiting belief that I encounter in others, it's probably something along the lines of I'm not good enough, I can't do that, or I'm not worthy of, the success.
Yes.
that one holds people back a
That's
lot.
the one common belief that I see also when I do my coaching. So it's I feel like it's kind of universal as well.
Is it a lack of confidence issue?
I think it goes even deeper. It's self-worth. Like if I'm not worthy of even taking action because I'm not worth it. And it's very deep.
And that's where you really have to start to dig in with the individual and find out where that comes from, right? Like maybe they had an abusive parent, maybe a parent left and it instills in them that, this person, my dad left. And so, I'm not worthy of his love. So he pieced out and like, I'm not worth, that, or
So you start
you never
blaming
know
yourself.
really.
Kind of style. You blame yourself.
Or you start telling yourself these things at a very early age. And the key at this point, when we're coaching and when we're working with folks is to help them understand that, when you develop that belief, you didn't know any better, right? Like let's just say it comes from a father leaving and you're like 8 years old or you're 12 years old. You don't have the emotional intelligence to really cope with that. So the things that you tell yourself help you deal with it. And maybe they serve you at the time, but as you grow and as you get older and as you learn, you realize like, well, that's not true. That's not why he left. He left because, whatever. He was an alcoholic or, he was a womanizer, whatever, right?
Yeah.
But it has nothing to do with you. And now you have to go in and you have to break that belief system. And it's really challenging. And again, like it depends on, it's different for every person. And then even the people that have the same ones, maybe it started for different reasons. And so it's a very individual thing.
And what would you advise somebody to do to break those belief systems? Because usually those are really entrenched into personality.
Yeah. Well, I think when you can get to the root of where it started and you realize, what you're doing, so it's just like in the book, the first step is awareness, right? Awareness creates choice.
Yeah.
And so now we have awareness of what we're doing and how it's negatively impacting us and our lives and even the people around us. And so with that awareness, we have a choice. Do I want to continue this pattern or do I want to work on repetitions, accumulating repetitions in the new way, right? And so I always use sports as the analogy. And so in the new way would be like if we changed your golf swing, right? So you've maybe accumulated several thousand repetitions of swinging a golf club in one way. If we now change your swing, it will feel awkward and uncomfortable at first. But when you get more swings with the new way, it will just kind of become the way and it will become more comfortable. And so being patient with yourself, understanding that, it's going to take thousands of repetitions or hours or however you want to break it down and look at it, whatever a rep looks like in this new change, decisions or micro decisions or, whatever. And so it starts with awareness, then you have the choice. And then the goal is, that you're making choices that are in line with, your values and your goals.
You guys, a question, right? Because you always say, always stay a kid. Like I think that's a very good thing. That why are we adults giving that up? Like, is that not like that's the system that we live in? It's always like, we're in the Matrix kind of style, right? So how you pull out of that matrix?
Yeah. What is it? The red pill or the blue pill?
Yeah, that's like, how you want to do it.
I can't remember. You just got to take the right pill. No, I mean, it's a challenge. And I think it just, it's on the individual, I think, to really spend time thinking about, what do you want out of this life? And I know it's kind of maybe a morbid way to look at it, but I love that phrase, memento mori, that reminder that, we are all going to die at some point and you never know when that's going to happen. So
true.
I don't know how much time I have here on this planet or what happens after that. But I do know that for the time that I'm here, there are certain things that I want to do and experience and feel. And if I'm making choices that, lead me away from that, or getting caught up in things that lead me away from that, that's minimizing my opportunities to do those things that I want to accomplish and do. And so it's constantly being vigilant over, again, choices and how we spend our time, what we pay attention to, what we're watching. And I mean, I know it kind of sounds like the same stuff, but it really is. Like, once you develop that awareness, it's something that you really can't unknow, or you can't turn it off. Like, once you start to see that, you really do kind of get outside the matrix. And hopefully that makes sense to you guys.
You know what I think that also is kids are fearless, right? They don't know fear. They knew no fear because something happened, they got pain. So for them, fear is pain. So I think when we grow up, we've experienced pain, or we've experienced sadness, those kind of things, and it starts limiting you. It starts holding you back. But once you let that stuff go and be like a kid, and don't be afraid of stumbling, falling down, and getting up. The thing is getting up and doing it again. And I think that comes into the reps again. Do reps, do more reps. It's being relentless, not stopping. If you look at, of course, that's another book, but you touch upon that is the amount of swings you do. Olympians, they literally go into their workouts or into their lives 100% committed. And I think that's where you have to get, is just to be committed to your own success, to be committed to yourself to succeed.
It's years of sacrifice for moments of glory.
Exactly.
That's what it is.
You should know that. You're a triathlete, Iron Man.
Jeff is as well. So
No, I just participate.
Yeah. You guys are top athletes. I'm sitting here and I'm not.
Yeah,
But I do agree with the fact that kids are fearless and they have no reason to be.
No.
And they should. And I think we should all try to aspire to maintain that as much as possible. Of course, there's the realism.
Yeah, but I understand that. But there's a lot of distractions of the matrix, or how you call it, that pulls you back into that, that rhythm.
Yeah.
But Ryan talks about
that's the
bullshit
challenge, right?
rules in
That's
the
the
book,
challenge.
right? You remember that? Bullshit rules?
Uh-huh.
So is the matrix for you kind of the bullshit rules that we all collectively decide to follow?
No, actually not.
No? What is the matrix for you?
The matrix is just the system of waking up, go to work, go to bed, feed the kids, go to school. If you don't go to school, you don't have a paper, you cannot make it. It's like, it's a system.
But it's changing.
Well, and to your point about the kids, and I think it goes back to something Jennifer said about the belief systems, right? And so, like, if you watch a kid and they wreck their bike, or they're walking and they trip and they fall, there's no story that they tell themselves about that, right? They don't say, I'm not cut out to ride a bike, or I'm a screw up, or whatever, right? And so somewhere along the lines, as adults, we start to attach a story to everything that happens to us. And it's, if you try a diet and you fail, but you've seen the commercials or ads and this diet works for, whoever, then you're like, okay, well, I'm the problem, right? Like, I messed this up. I can't do this, or I'm a failure.
Which comes back also to the same belief that I'm not enough, basically.
Right. And so it's the stories that we tell ourselves. And again, it's the inner dialogue, right? So again, like, mastering your mind, catching yourself, bringing an awareness to that, and stopping that and saying, like, look, like, there's a difference between being a screw up and screwing up, right? Like, I can make a mistake and still not be a mistake. I can screw up and not be a screw up. And so language is really, really important. And so catching ourselves, the way we talk to ourselves, the stories and the meaning that we assign to things. If I walk down the street, I trip and I fall, just like a kid, like, I get up, I dust myself off, and I keep going. Like, it doesn't mean anything about me. It doesn't say anything about me. And as adults, we want to attach something to that. And I think that's where we really start to get screwed up.
Ryan, one of the reality checks, I had this as a quote, is that we are the only ones that view ourselves in a negative light after a swing and a miss. So for me personally, when I read that, it touched me, because for years, even if I had a job, I worked at highest positions there are, but I felt that I wasn't contributing. I wasn't happy in those positions. So I saw myself as a failure when everybody else saw me as a success. This guy has a good job. He has stable income, but still for me that was not enough. That during the pandemic I quit and I went to do something totally different. Just because I'm in a total growth mindset now. But when I read that line, for me that was like, yeah, that's totally me. And I had it a lot of times through my life.
But I think the pandemic was a kind of a blessing because I
Yes.
think a lot of people woke up that moment when everything stopped. From hey, I'm not doing the right thing at the moment.
Well, you burst the bubble.
It burst a lot of bubbles.
You're
Right?
in the pandemic. The pandemic showed two kinds of people. People that are going to cry about it, and people who are going to just do something about it and make
thrive
money
as well.
and make money and thrive.
Yeah.
And the people that cried about it and just waiting for the stimulus checks, they're not going to be successful.
Yeah.
Look how many entrepreneurs Oliver sees it. How many entrepreneurs popped up in the last year?
Yeah.
People had a need. People finally got uncomfortable, and they had to get through that uncomfortableness to feed their family, and they finally had a reality check.
That's one part that I relate a lot with the book is the continuing message of being outside the comfort zone, because
Yes.
it's a tricky part. I mean, before you know it, you're in the comfort zone, and then you have to actively think about being uncomfortable again.
Yes.
And I think that's a big challenge for many people. Sometimes you don't realize that you're actually being in a comfortable situation.
True. Yes, Jen?
Yes, I wanted to ask also, in the book you talk about how we like to stay in the familiar. So everything that is uncomfortable is not familiar for us. But you also mentioned that we learn by repetition. So if you practice often enough, it becomes a new default, correct?
Correct.
But I want to ask you, is it true that it takes on average 66 days, like Robin Sharma famously says? Did you experience that 66 days to wire in a new habit?
I don't. I think it's human nature to want to know how long it's going to take to do something or anything. I've heard 3 weeks, 21 days. I've heard 60 days. I've heard 66. I've heard 75. So here's my take on this. I mean, if somebody is really worried about how long it's going to take, then they're not really committed to the thing. Show me somebody who doesn't care how long it's going to take. Show me somebody who has been in the gym 4 days a week for 10 years, or, eaten right for 7 years, or, somebody that, I don't know, reads a book a week for 30 years. Are you doing the thing because you want the result, or are you doing the thing because it's the thing that's required to become the version of you that you want to be, right? And so, if you're committed to that version of you, if you're committed to becoming that person, it doesn't matter if it's going to take you 20 days or 45 days or, 4.5 years, you're going to do the thing.
Yeah.
And so I don't even pay attention when people start talking about it takes this many days. Yes, it does take time to establish new routines and new habits. I think in my life and in a lot of the people that I've worked with, usually about 2 weeks is kind of when things really start to click and kick in. Now, is that the point at which it becomes permanent? No. But I mean, again, I pay way less attention to, how long is it going to take? And again, it's almost like a red flag to me, right? Like that's the new meme now, right? Red flag,
Everything is
right?
a red flag.
Like a red flag
Jeff
to
is a
me
red flag.
is like, when a new coaching client is like, how long is it going to take me to, make this a habit or whatever, right? So,
But Ryan, what Jennifer asked, I think if you have a habit set already and you can stack upon that habit, it's much easier. For me, an example I can give you right now, in my morning routine, I have a strict morning routine. It's based off the 5 a.m. club rule for Robin Sharma. But I started meditating for my health and to start the day more positive. And I can tell you within less than 2 weeks, it's in my routine right now. So I used to wake up, take pre-workout, read books, do my thing in the morning, go work out. But now I wake up, I meditate, then I take my pre-workout and I do my thing. So those 5 to 10 minutes that I meditate, it takes 5 minutes. I want to make it 10, but the 5 minutes right now is enough, but I want to get to 10. But just because I have that habit already, my morning routine, just stacking those extra 5 minutes, waking up 5 minutes, a little 5 minutes earlier, it helps and it makes it much easier. So the habit stacking thing is definitely something that you have to recommend people, and it becomes easier. And like you said, if you have to ask how long something will take, then are you committed?
It's a very popular question I get though during my course.
Yeah.
So they're like, okay, you have these new tools and systems, but how long is it gonna take? So I'm gonna tell them exactly what you told me, Ryan. Thank you for that.
It takes as long as it takes. Are you committed?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Are you committed? It's about commitment.
Now, Ryan, for those who, if I can interject, and if those for those who find it difficult to make a change, or to build those habits, I was especially intrigued by the section of the book regarding breathing exercises, because I think if you're struggling with a process, or you're struggling to build on habits, and then maybe if you do these exercises, they'll help you actually, center yourself and go for it again. Is that I know that the book goes into different examples of the breathing exercises. I especially like the box breathe. I don't know if there's something you can expand on that with regards to how that relates to building processes and stuff like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, as you mentioned in the book, there is quite a bit about breath, and so if I try to go like a Cliff's Notes version of it here, every breath that we take sends a signal to our body that either we are in, so the inhalation is activating. It stimulates the sympathetic portion of our nervous system. And so that's the one that we often refer to as fight or flight. The exhale portion of every breath stimulates, they both inhale and exhale stimulate the vagus nerve, but the inhale is, like I said, it's excitatory. The exhale is relaxing, and it pushes us into parasympathetic, which is rest and digest, right? And so, if we're talking about HRV and recovery, like we get into in the book, the more time that we spend in the parasympathetic state, the greater those numbers are, or the higher those numbers are. And those numbers can be synonymous with bandwidth or emotional resiliency. So I guess for the sake of this conversation, we'll use emotional resiliency, which basically means, we have a greater capacity to deal with stuff, right? And so, to your question of, how can we leverage breath to increase that capacity, right? To center ourselves and be able to, deal with things. Hopefully, as I've been explaining that, you're starting to realize that, okay, so if we have a longer exhale than an inhale, then that breath itself becomes parasympathetic, right? And so if we do, say, a 3 or 4 second inhale and then pair that with a 10-second exhale, that is something called parachute breathing. And, in the workshops and when I talk, I always have people do this for a few cycles. And within 3 or 4 cycles of that parachute breathing, people are calm, they're more relaxed. The whole room, just the energy of the room just changes completely, and everybody can feel it right away. And, to be able to say, look, you can change your physiology that quickly and get yourself into that place where, you're a little bit more clear-headed, you're a little bit more focused. We can shift from maybe an emotional response or a limbic response, and now we can use our prefrontal cortex and we can be rational and logical about this. Or we can, have less anxiety about something that's bothering us, whatever the thing is. The reason I like breath as the number one tool in our toolbox is because it is always accessible. Some of the other tools in our toolbox, so for example, movement, You can change your physiology by doing 30 burpees or 30 seconds and do as many burpees as you can. But if you're in the middle seat of an airplane or if you're stuck in traffic, you can't do that, right? But you can breathe, right? As long as you're alive, you're breathing. No matter where you are, no matter how much or how little space you have, you're breathing. And you can go to your breath and you can control your physiology. And so, I know we skipped this, but in the beginning of the book, we talk about how feelings are defined in neuroscience as mental experiences of physiological states. And so we've just outlined how you can instantly change your physiological state. So if we can influence and change and control our physiological state, everything from the neck down, then we can also have control over what's going on from the neck up. And so, hopefully that, gives you an answer, that also provides some tools and something that can, you can take action on.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. I'm sure it helps a lot of listeners.
I have a question because you, Jennifer, also has a mindset reset
Course.
course.
Yes.
How does the book fill in for your course?
Well, a lot of the tools that Ryan talks about in the book, I give these as tools in my course as well. But what I like about this book is that Ryan goes really deep into neuroscience. So thank you for that, Ryan. And I wanted to ask you something as well. You talk about delaying gratification, and I teach my students this as well. But how does this look like in your daily life, if you can give us an example?
I'm trying to think of an example. I think my entire life is delayed gratification at this point. It's just, everything I do is, it's just wake up and what are the move to change things. I'm currently building another business called Fuel the Pursuit with a business partner. And it's an incredibly slow, frustrating grind. We're doing some stuff with food. So we had to get approval from the health department here in the U.S. And that took months, way longer than we expected. We actually missed some deadlines that we had put out in terms of marketing and wanting to be ready to sell and deliver, some food. And, it's just one of those things where you can only control what you can control, right? And so it's just you wake up and you control what you can control. You do the things. You make sure that if something is in your power, that you are moving the chains on that. And you wake up and you do it again. And it goes back to, that thing I mentioned earlier with the compound effect and just every single day doing a little something. It could be, financial health and saving money or investing. It could be food side of things. I'm very, particular about what I will put in my body. And you could say everything I eat is delayed gratification because I won't allow myself, I don't put anything in my body that's like hey, I want that right now. Right. Training, I really don't like a lot of my workouts. But that's for a reason. They're designed to make me better at the things that I really enjoy doing. And, if I'm suffering in training and getting better at those things in training, then when the day comes that it's time to perform and I'm doing my thing, I'm not suffering. I'm not, it doesn't suck. Like I'm excelling in that environment. Hopefully that.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
I think I want to go back to something that I think we touched upon a couple of minutes ago. I think one of the lines in your book is losers focus on winners, but they should be focusing on the actions that will lead themselves to winning. All right, I've heard that before, that losers focus on winners and winners focus on winning. Why is self-validation so important for people, especially on social media, etc.? Why is that so important? I asked myself this, but it was very important for me in the past. But right now, I give two craps what people care about me. I put out my own content and I do my own stuff, and it is what it is.
But does that come with the age, you think?
No, it came with my mindset. It literally came with my mindset because in the beginning, I think Oliver knows me from back in the day. I was Mr. Social Butterfly. I was out. Everybody knew me. I had a nickname. Everybody knew me by my nickname. Nobody knew my real name. But at the time, that was important for me. But afterwards, when I got into a growth mindset, social media, I went through the dips that I lost friends, I changed circles, I did all that. But that self-validation, especially when I let that go, when you let go of your ego, that's when you start growing. But why is that so important? For me, I learned it the hard way, but how can I teach that, or how can we teach that through this platform or through any other platform to let that go?
Man. Yeah, that's an incredible question, and I think it's such an important topic. You mentioned social media. Look, I think we have to acknowledge that we live in a time where, social media exacerbates, amplifies the ego and its drive for validation and love, admiration, whatever those kind of surface level needs are that the ego chases. And I think, I'm really glad you brought up ego, because I think to your question of, how do we coach that? How do we help with that? I think, look, ego is one of those words that, it's in I'm not saying that we're misusing it, but like in popular culture and in media, it's misused a lot. And, we all have an ego, right? It just exists on a spectrum. And it's just, where on that spectrum are you? And how much is that ego dictating your decisions and your actions? And, when you talk to people who have done a lot of consciousness exploration and self development and growth, you find that the more work an individual does in those realms, the less the ego has power over the self, right? And so, to me, the answer to your question is in moving from being ego-driven to being self-driven. And, can you work towards ego death or making that shift on the spectrum to where, you're operating out of the self and pursuing things that bring long-term satisfaction and fulfillment to the self, as opposed to those dopamine hits that really drive the ego and kind of keep it hungry and like thirsty for more, right? Like thirst trap is such a great name for what a lot of those posts are. And it's not a new thing, that we chase that validation and that we're driven by our egos. But like we were saying, social media definitely amplifies that. And I think it's just, again, it's one of those things where awareness is a really critical component of this. And, with that awareness, we're afforded a choice. And then which way do you choose to go?
True.
Yes, and now that we're talking about the ego, I saw you in another podcast, and you mentioned that to go beyond the ego, you need to have a world-centric view, and to do this, you need to educate yourself and travel. So I want to ask you, where did you travel, that one place that you say was an eye-opener for you?
Aruba. He told us 50 years ago.
I was going to say Aruba. Man, I've been really fortunate. I've gotten to travel to quite a few places in the U.S. I've seen a lot of the U.S. and I've been outside the U.S. quite a few times. And I had the opportunity to travel to Finland and Sweden in different trips. And those two countries are phenomenal. I also had a unique experience going to the Bahamas, and I didn't see in Aruba what I saw in the Bahamas, but maybe you guys being there can, speak to this as, if it exists the way that it did. And even in parts of Mexico where there is such a juxtaposition of the resort area and then the non-resort area. And the resort area is definitely designed to paint a certain picture for tourists, and the non-resort areas are completely different. And I think seeing that difference was a really eye-opening thing. And then, like I said, going to Sweden and Finland and just seeing how those countries, everybody there is so nice. There was nobody overweight. everybody spoke multiple languages. I think that's another thing that fascinates me. So, somebody asked me, I was going over to, the first one was in Finland, and they asked me to speak. And it was, several weeks had gone by after, committing to doing it. It dawned on me like, oh, they don't speak English. I wonder if, like, do I need to be able to speak another language to do this? And like, just that like American way of like, oh, well, everybody just speaks English. And, I think that's been a really eye-opening thing for me, going to those countries and people speak, 3 or 4 different languages. And, here in the U.S., if somebody speaks 2 languages, we're like, oh man, like that person's really smart. And like, not really. Not that they're not, but just there's so many things that just open your eyes to, just like you said, that world-centric view. Was that the Mark Divine podcast?
Yes, it was.
Yeah. He's another guy that's seen a lot of the world. So yeah,
awesome.
He's an awesome dude.
So
all right, thank you,
Ryan, Jennifer. That was a good, awesome question. And in line with that, I was wondering, because I read the book and was thinking about it. It's like, okay, so how do we relate this? Because we're trying to, get the word out, and we really like the book, so we would like other people to read it on the island. And one of the things I was wondering is, how does culture have to play a role within your teachings or whatever you're trying to convey? I'll give an example. So we're on an island, and island life tends to go smoothly and relaxed and stuff like that. And usually what I read from the book is a lot of personality traits that can be considered high-strung or sometimes even a bit difficult to deal with. How do you see that with relating to a particular culture? Do you think the book covers it for any culture out there, or do you think there are certain adaptations that need to be made?
No, that's a really good question. You're spot on in what you pick up on in the book. I mean, it is kind of it's essentially a kick in the pants, right? To get going, and it's one of the things with a book or an online course or something that you make once and put out for a lot of people is that you have to, I guess one of the shortcomings with a product like that is that you're assuming that what the problem is, right? And so here's a solution if this is your problem, right? And so in the case of this book, as you mentioned, it's a little bit more like go get it. That could be seen as like high strung or type A or however you want to kind of categorize or characterize that. It certainly doesn't mean that an individual can't be laid back and relaxed and also realize their dreams, right? I am definitely not on team no sleep. There's a lot of that entrepreneurial stuff that's out there that I not only disagree with, but I, will speak out against. So, but I think to your point, like to the cultural thing, yeah, I mean, I think just like some of the other questions that we've talked about, with it being very, this is personal development, right? And so it's by nature, it's a very individual thing. And so, I think, there's kind of the one size fits all, then there's like the cultural, and then there's the individual, right? And so, I mean, definitely, you could have an adaptation of this for specific cultures, but I think if you're going to do that, then why not take it a whole step further and do it for, the individual, and just tailor it to the individual. And you really can't do that with a book. You can't write one book for every single person. And that's where the coaching comes in is, as you guys have all experienced, when you're working with an individual, you get to take these concepts that are in a course or a book, and you get to break them down and help, tailor them or customize them to an individual.
Jen?
Yes, so another question for you. We're on such a small island, and I feel like because most of us, we know each other, we have, to a certain degree, a fear of rejection. So we don't take action towards our goals because we're afraid of what people might say, what they might think. Do you have a book in mind that we could recommend for someone who struggles with the fear of rejection? Have you read any of those books?
Fuck your feelings.
Follow.
Hey, he's not wrong. You know, I have not read a book that touches on that specifically. You know, I mentioned earlier my mentor and first business coach and now friend, Paul Reddick. And, you know, he and I had been working on another book or a book together just before COVID hit. And that book may still come out. It has just been put on the shelf as a project for a year or so. But, you know, I don't know that he's published this anywhere, but he has spoken a lot and done a lot of work on, you know, helping people with that. And, you know, what I've learned from him in that area and what we may include in our book on that would be, you know, I mean, some of it is, you know, like we just joked, right? Like, fuck your feelings. But a lot of it comes back to what we were talking about earlier with the tapes or the narratives that we play in our head. And, you know, with that, you know, we create this construct that doesn't even exist. And then we allow that construct to make us play small or to prevent us from doing the thing, right? And so by this construct, I mean exactly what you said of, you know, oh, what is Oliver going to think if he sees me doing this? Or, you know, if I go for this, you know, is Jennifer going to think less of me? Or if I go for this and I fail, you know, is Jennifer going to make fun of me? Is she going to talk to, you know, shit about me to her friends or whatever, right? And I'm creating all of that. You guys may not do any of that. And so whoever the people are in your head as you're spinning that, as you're saying that, creating that narrative, you are creating that construct. And just as likely as they do those things, maybe even more likely is that they won't do those things. And so those things aren't even real. Yet we're allowing those beliefs to hold us back. And so that's all in our head and that's all in our control.
I think a book I can recommend. Sorry to interject, but I think a book I can recommend is probably by a guy that you would probably know also, is Trent Shelton. He actually has a book before he was known called Know Your Circle, and I'll come back why I say that. But he has another book called The Greatest You. This guy, I've read a couple of his books, but about Know Your Circle is something that I talk about in a couple of my IG videos that I do. It comes down to who you hang out with, right? You have it in your book also, and I think John Lee Dumas says that in every episode he does of his podcast is you are the sum of the 5 people you hang out with most. So like with me, I truly believe that in the past I had a circle. All of my friends became successful except for me. But when I left that circle, I became a success in my mind and in my mind. And then I started roaming around with different types of people. But what Jennifer's getting at, I think the self-doubt part, those would be 2 good books and all of his videos to let people, because he talks a lot about that, is about who your circle is, who you are. You have to be comfortable with you first before you can go on and go to the next step. Because a lot of times when I took coaching, I say that in every episode I do, and I talk to people, is I had a coach during the pandemic, and that helped me. It helped me to go back into where I had issues, to excel, and then even change my life. So
Thank you for that, because the number one reason I hear from my students is the fear of rejection. So they have planning, they have marketing plan, business setup, but they can't take action. So thank you for recommending these books.
This is something that Jeff and I talked about too, about when he recommended me this book that he wants to contact Ryan. I think I was one of the people that told you have a no.
Yeah.
You can get a yes.
Just
You know,
go for it.
I'm sending my goal. I have on my goal list that I'll have Trent Shelton in Aruba speaking at an engagement, and hopefully you can be here too, and we can have like not a TED event, but maybe a TED event. Who knows? We maybe do that too. that we can get something like that to motivate people to start moving.
Yes.
That's where we need to go, because this is right now what's needed in the whole world, not only Aruba,
Yes.
but the whole world. This is what's
I love
needed.
that idea, by
I
the
am
way.
convinced.
Let's do it.
I am
Yeah.
convinced that
Yeah,
people
I love that
have-
idea too.
Credits is on board. Credits on board. He just told me. He just gave me a thumbs up. He didn't see it behind the scenes. He gave a thumbs up.
I am convinced. Because
I'm giving you a thumbs up right now.
All right, we'll get you here.
No, I see it on a daily basis that, especially because we're on a very small island, and people have sometimes preconceived notions or an idea that you shouldn't ask certain things, but actually you should.
Yes.
You should ask, because, I mean, what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, but what keeps us from asking?
No.
The fear of rejection.
The Matrix.
The Matrix.
The
You're right. The Matrix.
Ryan, if
Yeah.
I can ask, I really needed to ask you this question, because when I saw it in the book, I was like, I was wondering where you were going with this. But the statement of "fake it till you make it." Now, I've heard that a lot, and I think I don't like the sentence, but I really like the way you explain it. So would you mind explaining to the audience what you mean with "fake it till you make it"?
I got to do some checking in here. I forget where I went exactly with that, but I share your sentiment, and I think I even wrote it. That the very next line is, "I hated that damn quote," because
and it was
and
from
it's
your
past-
coach.
Yeah, it's
basketball
past tense
coach.
because it was a high school basketball coach that used to say that every single day. Fake it till you make it. Fake it till you make it. And so so the way that I have kind of spun that is act as if, right? And so in our minds, thinking about, okay, act as if I am that person, or act as if I am that version of me, right? And so in the workshops that I do, or when I'm speaking, one of the things I love to have people do is come up with what their own values are. I get to talk to a lot of businesses, right? And so I can walk into a business or a C-suite, like a leadership group, and these folks can just rattle off the core values of the business and the mission statement for the company and all these things. I'm like, okay, well, what are your personal values? Crickets. Like, they don't know. And you want to be a high performer, you want to be a leader, but you have never identified what your own values are as an individual. Like, what do you stand for? What do you stand against? How do you want to be remembered? So there's a whole bunch of these questions that I can throw out that are prompts that help to get people started and figuring out what these values are, right? And so then the very next thing I do is what is preventing you from acting that way or being that version of you right now, right? If that's your value, the only thing preventing you from demonstrating that is you. It's your choices, it's your actions. And so act as if is just this reminder that we are in total control of that. And so, if you want to be a world champion triathlete, act as if you are a world champion triathlete. Like, what would that world champion triathlete eat for dinner tonight?
I guess tonight he's gonna eat wings.
Hey, maybe you're a good enough athlete to get away with it. I was never that good of an athlete.
No, Ryan, I really like your explanation. It's because, I asked the question because I get it so many times, because we're trying to acquire funding for starters. And many times I'm at the table. Many times it happens quite a bit that I'm on the table, and it's like a conditional relationship. So I'll do this if you promise to get me funding for that. And my answer is always, no, you should start doing it. And once you do it, and then I'll look at what I can get for you, because the proof is in the pudding, and you have to be it. Because if you think that you're going to make the change that you projected, out of not even, not having it as a habit or anything else, it's not going to happen because you're going to have so many other obstacles to take into account once you start. So my advice usually is, start doing it. Don't wait. And most entrepreneurs say, just start, just do it, and then figure things out. It doesn't mean that you have to go all out and spend a whole bunch of money, but it does mean at least start acting like it. And I think that's the explanation. The part of the explanation that I really like, and I like the fact that you went into the detail in explaining it. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
No, I wanted to touch up on that too, is that how he explains it, he puts a positive connotation to it, because right now, because of social media, it has such a negative connotation to it that you don't, all we hear is don't fake it in entrepreneurship. You hear don't fake it till you make it. Be the true you, right? Especially on social media, especially with personal branding, be the true you. But how he spins it is, you have to, if you have a goal, you have to put your mindset there that you already reached your goal. You have to go beyond the reach of the goal to reach that goal. And
I
that's,
think it has to do with identity shifting as well, because when I started faking it, at first it feels uncomfortable, but after a while it becomes the new identity that you embody. So this way I like that.
That happened with me last year. At the position I was, my old job, I was at a senior position for 7 years, right? And I went to a coach and I told the coach, I'm not ready. I was going to apply for a director, a C-suite position. And I told the guy, I'm not old enough for this. He looked at my resume and he's like, Herrick, you have everything they need for this job. I didn't take the job, but that gave me the confidence that when something came up that I liked and that challenged me, that I see where I can progress, I went for it. But if I didn't have that one coach tell me and give me that confidence boost to say that, Herrick, you have it, you should go for it, it would have never happened. I would be still behind my 4 screens at my prior employer.
Yeah.
But Ryan, you were talking about you have to develop your passion, not find your passion. So you basically developed a passion along the way, right?
My mindset grew. Look, I knew I was a very social person. I knew I have a strong opinion about stuff. I was a leader amongst the floor always.
Donna Munsey,
I was always one of the rebel type people in the company, but that wasn't what was needed there. It was needed somewhere else. So when I found myself, my true self, and why I do stuff because I want to make people happy. That's literally why I do stuff. It may sound cliche, but a lot of us do the work because it makes us happy. And that's where you have to go. And for me, that's successful. That's what Gary Vee preaches, that success is happiness. And for me, when he said that, it blew my mind. I'm like, wait, yeah, dude, it's not about money. It's not about anything. It's about just being happy with yourself.
Happy what you're doing, basically.
Yeah, exactly. You have to wake up every morning, and when you go to work, you have to be happy. I hated when I had to go to my old job. I was the one making people happy, and that, because that made me happy. But I can't go to work with people with sad faces every day. And that's not for me.
It gives you a purpose. I think that's the most important thing. You have a purpose.
I found my purpose. Yes.
Yeah, and I agree with Ryan. He said in the beginning that if you think about tomorrow that we're not gonna be here, am I making an impact as well? I mean, that's beyond the ego. And when you can get there, you can choose work that is actually meaningful, and then you enjoy the process as well, not just aiming at the goal. So beautiful for sharing that.
But that's what habit stacking is all about too. Is like, if you look at Atomic Habits. Okay, we're going through a lot of books right now, but okay. But if you look at Atomic Habits, and I think he said in his book too, you have to enjoy the process. You have to enjoy that process of being successful. Enjoy the process. The goal, that's the cherry on top. For me, what I found out is I love building businesses. I love making the connections, building that stuff. And a lot of times when I have a successful project, I'm not interested anymore. It's like on to the next project. And that's a true entrepreneur. If you look at a true entrepreneur, when they've built something, like, okay, what's next? Ryan does the same. He's like, we have this new project coming up. He just announced it.
And new book and
Yeah, but that's the entrepreneurial life.
True. I know, guys.
Well, and
Go ahead.
I'm back. Sorry, guys. We had some audio difficulties, but no, I mean, Herrick, you just mentioned, the being process oriented, right, and falling in love with the process, and that, I wish I had remembered to mention that earlier, because as you were saying it, it made me immediately think of the question that Jennifer shared. That so many people are wanting to know, how long is it going to take, right? And when you're focused on the process, and you're lost in those actions, you get lost and wrapped up and you fall in love with the process. It doesn't matter if it's however many days, right? It's just you do the thing, you just keep focusing on the actions, and that result, the outcome, is not the thing that you're actually pursuing. You're pursuing the action. Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of one of my favorite lines or lessons from Dao De Jing, and that is that, we are not entitled to the fruits of our labors, only our labors, right? And, if you, as an entrepreneur, if you can wrap your head around that, or an athlete, if you can embody that and embrace that, sky's the limit. But trying to tell somebody that who just wants to lose 10 pounds, or, just wants to make their first, 10 grand or whatever it is, like, they don't want to hear it. They just want to know how long until I'm there.
Yeah.
Agreed.
True.
So Ryan, another question that I wanted to ask, and I think this is mostly geared to those young entrepreneurs that are really inspired, but don't know which road to take when they start their entrepreneurship journey. And I think this is a basic element that carries through their whole life, which is posturing. So posturing, I read in your book, that's important as well, and it means more than just the word, but also I read in another book which was kind of similar, from just posturing from a different perspective. But I was hoping you can give an explanation what you mean with posturing and why is that so important.
Well, I mean, when I'm talking about posture in the book, I'm purely talking about, like anatomical position and, its impact on our physiology, and then how that has downstream impacts on, how our mind is functioning for that day, right? Like, we've all had days where we're in pain. Somebody's, if you have back pain or neck pain, it'll hijack your attention and your mood and your focus. And so, we usually take health for granted until it's gone, right? If you're, only when you're injured do you have a tendency to say, like, oh man, I'm grateful to just be able to walk down the street today without pain, right? So in the book, I'm not making any kind of parallels or connections to posturing in the sense of like pretending or putting up a facade or any kind of front. It was just purely, the physical impacts of that.
Physical impact has a psychological impact as well, right?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, if you're, it's hard to do like sitting here, but like, I'll try to do it from a side angle so you can see it. But like, if I tell somebody to stand up and hold their phone and, look like they're typing on their phone, right? Like, most people will assume a position kind of like this, right? And so essentially you're hunched over, your shoulders are up by your ears, your head is forward, you're down. Well, now if I remove my phone or take that phone away from a person that is demonstrating and tell them to hold that same posture, it looks like a sad posture, right? Or like something's wrong. You would never expect somebody who just won like a major event or, landed a big deal, to have this hunched over and sad and, submissive posture. Right. And so, then we can get into, power poses and things like that. But yeah, I mean, the way that you carry yourself, the way that you hold your physical body, definitely has an impact on, not only your physical health, but your mood in that moment.
All right, guys. We're almost at the finish of our podcast today. We're going on one almost over an hour, man. Over an hour. This is no joke. First of all, I want to thank all of you. Ryan, I don't know if you want to say something before leaving us.
Man, I want to say thank you to all of you guys. I mean, Jeff, thank you for the idea and for putting all this together, and for everybody else, thank you for getting the book read and bringing these great questions. I mean, I've never really been a part of a podcast quite like this before. I mean, you guys all had some really great questions, so it's been a really fun conversation. And I kind of have to pinch myself. It's one of those moments where you write the book and you hope people read it, and when somebody from another country reaches out and says like, oh, we've read the book, we like it, we want to talk about it, and it's a really cool moment. So I'm grateful for you guys and your support.
Awesome.
Herrick?
Yeah, from me too. For me, I thank you for writing the book and inspiring all of us. A lot of times, I'm more of a talker, not a writer, but I absorb like a sponge. So we will definitely get the word out more. And I appreciate you taking your time. And literally, I think you made Jeff's dream come true. And I think all of us, one of our dreams come true is to have more international speakers come talk on these platforms on the island. And get the word out that some of us here are trying to help in different types of areas. So appreciate it. Thank you very much for all the inspiration and your time today to sit with us. I know, we're in a bar, so very, very inspirational stuff. But that's how we that's how we motivate.
That's the island life.
Yeah,
Right? That's the island life.
That's literally how you motivate people in Aruba. Is they have a beer. Look, we're having a beer too. So it's not the healthiest thing, but I'll still be up 4:30 in the morning tomorrow morning. So
and now we're getting the good food.
Now we're finally getting food.
Oliver.
Ryan, again, like Herrick said, thank you for your time today. I think you answered the questions perfectly. And I do hope that we do have some followers and listeners that are going to get interested and go read your book, because I think they're not only, tools for your professional life, but tools for your life in general. So thank you for providing that content out there. And I hope we can meet you soon in Aruba.
Yes. And
I would love that.
Yes, I would say thank you as well, Ryan. Thank you for writing the book. It's a big contribution to the personal development world. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who need this book, and I will be the one recommending it. So thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you guys so much. And if there's anything I can do to help turn Aruba into like the next Costa Rica for all the entrepreneurs, like, can we do that? Like,
why not? That's a good thing.
I'll let Jeff make the call.
Yeah.
Yes, we will
right.
make a call. I think Oliver and I will have a meeting pretty soon about that too.
Well, guys, before closing off, I really want to thank all of you here at the table. By the way, for the ones that are watching, Ender, just please put the book on the screen. This is the awesome book of Ryan. Go buy it. You can find it also on audiobook and everything. So if you don't like to read and just want to listen to a book, this is an awesome book to listen to. From the bottom of my heart, Ryan, I really appreciate your time. When you answered me that you told me, hey man, let's do it, I was blown away, man. I was like, what the fuck is this? This is not real, So I really, really appreciate it. I'm really honored to have you on Sopi Mix. This platform started a year ago, like I told you, just to talk about stuff on the island, to want to break taboos, and during the course of that time, it became a platform where we're hosting different shows, from business, sexual education, self-improvement, we're doing mental health, we're doing a different kind of shows on this platform. Technology, in other words. So by the way, business, banking and everything with Oliver. So I'm really, really for startups, so I'm really, really thankful. Once again, Ryan, thank you very, very much. We hope to see you soon in Aruba. And for all the ones that were logged in, thank you very much. We want to thank our sponsors, Subway, Swingmasterz, Eclectic Advisory Partners, Qredits. All right, Qredits in the house. Local Store for providing us the place and awesome wings and some beers. So everybody that was here, thank you very much. Ryan, once again, you have to keep in touch, man. This was really, really awesome. Really, I appreciate it.
Definitely. Yep, we'll do. And thank you guys again. This was a blast.
And say hi to Donna. Tell her sorry to
I will.
take her phone for an hour. All right?
No, I will. No worries.
All
Thank
right.
you guys.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
very much. All right, guys, we're signing
All right.
out. Bye-bye.
Bye. Ayo.
See ya.